said, how should we do an intro? What should our intro be?
Welcome to family.
Welcome to our very first video, Family Table Talk. I'm Ivan.
And I'm Stephanie.
And today we are going to be talking about the evolution of our relationship. And we'll explain why this video is called Hateship, Courtship. And you'll probably be able to figure it out. But we actually met in 2001. My family had just moved back from Germany, and I think it was at a missions conference in April of 2001 at my home church, and my home pastor invited my family over and Stephanie's family over. And do you remember the game that we played?
No, I just remember it was a card game.
Well, we played a card game, but we also played Killer or Winkum.
Okay.
Where like everybody pulls a card, they sit around in a circle, and the killer has to like discreetly wink at people. And when you wink at somebody, they fold their arms because you kill them.
Okay.
So for all of you Baptist teenagers out there, play that game because it's a good excuse to wink at the opposite sex. So that's the first memory I have of us. I really didn't like you guys.
No. Same.
Which leads us to 2004, when my sister Tabitha meets Don from Stephanie's church, her home church. They started corresponding with each other. We lived in Illinois, and Don was in Rochester, Minnesota. And a year and a half later, Tabitha and Don get married. So over that year and a half time period, I think we interacted with each other a couple of times, with us visiting in Rochester, Don's family, so Tabitha and Don could, fall in love. And again, we really didn't like each other at all. I thought her family was super stuck up and very closed off and not very friendly. I mean, they were friendly for pretend is how it came off. What was your impression of me? Your first impression that you can remember?
I just really didn't like your family. I thought you all were weird.
Well, we are. Nothing has changed. I've made her weird with me.
Thanks. Yep.
So then, again, we saw each other a couple of times from about 2013 up to 2013 when we were at a meeting in Dubuque, Iowa. And for some reason, I had gained this new confidence, so I was very social, and for some reason, Stephanie was too.
Yeah.
We went bowling together with a group, but she hung out with me and my younger sister, Hannah, the entire time that we were there. And my opinion of her changed a little bit. Funny thing is, though, is my brother and his wife were at the same meeting, and we were talking about all the young ladies that were there, and they're like, well, what about Stephanie Martin? I'm like, never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. I respect the Martin family, but I will never be a part of that family. They're just way too hoity-toity. It was not gonna happen. But by the end, Sunday night, we went over to the pastor's house that Sunday night, just the families that were left, and we all sat around the table, all the preacher's kids that were left, and we just had a really good time, and my opinion was completely changed that Sunday night, and I wanted to say something to her that Sunday night about, hey, do you want to maybe, become Facebook friends? And maybe get to know each other? But I didn't. I chickened out. I don't know, why were you so friendly that weekend?
Oh, I don't know. I don't.
Well, because that Sunday afternoon, there was an ice storm that came through there in Dubuque, and they kind of changed their services a little bit. So they allowed for a testimony time. And do you remember getting up and giving a testimony?
I vaguely remember.
So she gets up, and this is probably where my mind got completely changed about her, but she stood up and she started talking about how she appreciated the church creating a place that was a safe haven for preachers' kids, and that she was able to open up and be herself more. So that was, thankfully she was able to do that.
That's not normal for me.
She's a closed off person, no emotion. No, she shows emotion now, but I helped her with that.
Well, also 2 kids later.
Well, 2 kids later, you're always emotional. Parents in general. But so a week later, we left the conference. She went back to Rochester. I went back to Illinois with my parents. Mm-hmm. And February 2nd. Well, rewind a little bit. I think 2 days later, we friended each other on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And she had asked me about a group photo, if I had a group photo that was taken at the ice skating rink, because we went ice skating together too, and she grabbed my arm so she wouldn't fall. I did. And in our Baptist circles, you do not touch each other of the opposite sex until you get married. So that was a big deal. So she had asked me if I had that group picture, and so I did, and I gave it to her, and or my hands in the way. Yeah. So then February 2nd, I talked to my parents. They were like, yeah, we were really impressed with her, and we like her. We like her family. And I'm thinking, I still don't like her family. Again, because they're just so stuck up, and Stephanie's the only good one. So February 2nd, I messaged her. I'm like, hey, I don't even remember what I said. I should have pulled up the Facebook
Can I
message.
have your dad's phone number so I can call him to see if it would be okay for us to correspond? So I'm actually out getting food, and I start freaking out because I'm like, but by the one time I'm nice to a guy, he wants to get to know me. And so I went home after getting food, and Mom and Dad were in the living room, and I asked I said, well, Ivan wants to have your phone number so he can call you. So Dad's like, sure. So I sent a number to him.
It was the wrong number, which was really embarrassing because I called it 3 times and got I think it was a lady, and she's like, nope, still not the number you're looking for. I'm like, So this was already awkward because I didn't want to call her dad that night. And so I'm like, okay, thanks for the number. When would be a good time to call? And she's like, oh, tonight. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Okay, I'll do that. And when you're trying to impress a girl and her dad, you kind of want to do things on their terms a little bit. So I'm like, okay, great. So did I call him that night, or did I have to wait till the next day?
I think you called him that night.
I finally got the number. I think it was like 8 o'clock when I finally called after I called that poor lady 3 times. Still the wrong number.
I was so embarrassed that I gave him the wrong phone number.
So was it then that your mom...
It was, yes.
Said something, a warning about the Plemons boys?
So as we're talking about whether or not I would like to get to know him, my mom's like, well, just be careful because of the reputation his brothers had, and he might have a kid. Talking about Ivan might have a kid. And so
which
okay.
I don't have any other children than what we have.
And what the post she was talking about was his dog.
I called my Schnauzer Chihuahua mix, Brownie, I called him my son. And so her mom had picked up on that, and she's like, hey, he might have a kid. And she didn't tell me this until, I don't know, it was at least 6 months later, because you didn't tell me right away, because we did long distance for the first 8 months of our courtship. And actually, her dad sent us a questionnaire, sent me a questionnaire, and wanted both of us to fill out a questionnaire as if we were already to the point of wanting to get married.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, she's like, whoa, no. We're getting to know each other first. We're not even near that betrothal period, whatever you want to call it.
And he was like, well, you don't have to do it right now, but you can go through it
Some of the questions
in a couple weeks.
Yeah, some of the questions you don't talk about until you're engaged. And we weren't near there. So we corresponded back and forth for 8 months, from that February to June or July. Oh, it was July, because I had already been accepted to Masters Baptist College up in Fargo, North Dakota, which is closer to Rochester, where she was living, than from where I was living in Southern Illinois. So that was a plus. We'd already talked about that. I'd be able to come visit. And Hannah, my younger sister, was going up with me to Masters. So she already knew about that. I was going up for music. So 3 weeks before Hannah and I were set to leave for Fargo,
we are Skyping.
we're Skyping. That's right.
And I had been talking to both of my parents, because I was done with the long distance relationship.
Yeah, she hates talking on the phone. She didn't like the Skypes that we did. I was all for it. I really enjoyed it.
Because he doesn't talk on the phone. He makes me talk the whole time.
Now, if you're around us now, I do all of the talking.
Yes. So that's what was frustrating for me, is when we would call, I would be the only one talking. And he just dead silence on his end. So
And I'm actually still like that. Whenever I call my parents on the phone, they do all the talking, and I'm just like, yeah,
Yep. And
well, the
falls
kids,
asleep.
Yeah,
Well,
sometimes I do.
he's on the phone.
That's okay though. I work a lot. So anyway, so we're Skyping, and she asked me, she's like, so what do you think about me moving up to Fargo? I'm like,
And going to Masters.
and going to Masters. That's the only way, because the dorm's very affordable. And this was on Skype, so
He hung up on me.
I hung up on her accidentally, but
no.
yes, accidentally, but I'm glad I did, because I started freaking out from excitement. Because I'm like, this is no way, like, she's really interested in me. And a couple of days before that, I'd had a conversation with my dad about, I really think she's the one, and things like that. So
And I knew after 3 weeks of corresponding with him that he was the one, and I was getting married.
yeah, it took
him
about 6 months before I figured that out, which is fine, which is perfectly
very much
fine.
longer.
So 3 weeks before I'm set to move, she says I'm moving up there too. So I'm like, this is great. So we get up there. She moves 3 days after Hannah and I get up to Masters. And it was a Wednesday night after you had come up there. Was it? It was a Wednesday night? It was after a church service.
Yeah.
I know that. And there was, if you've ever been to Bible college, everybody is coupled up there. And so we had become friends with some other couples there, and some of them had already set their wedding date, not even engaged yet, and they were talking about getting married. She and I had never had that conversation yet. We had talked about a few things about future plans, but never had the I want to marry you conversation. So we were walking back from church.
No, you had cooked me dinner.
Oh, was it that night?
Yes, it was that night.
Anyway, I had cooked her a spaghetti dinner. With these nasty rice noodles, because she was on some weird diet, and her mom's like, make sure you stay in your diet, blah, 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 blah. So I made her rice noodles. Yeah, it was gross. And we were in the gym. The lights were kind of dimmed in the gym. I had this little table set up with chairs, and because the college rules were you could not be alone in a room together, even in the gym. Was it Hannah?
Yes.
Hannah was on the other side of the gym chaperoning. We didn't do anything wrong. So we're sitting there conversing, and I just kind of I just start talking and rambling, and literally just like, yeah, and future plans, and I really love you, and I keep going.
Kept going.
And I don't even give her any time to respond or anything.
And I'm sitting there he just told me he loves me. Let's rewind to those 3-letter words and talk about that.
So yeah, that's the first time I said I love you, in a gym, at Bible college, just randomly dropping it in a conversation.
Yep, randomly dropping it.
Was it that night then that we talked about getting married?
I think so.
So it was that night. So then her parents had just dropped her off a couple of days before. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, we don't need to wait. I'm going to call your dad. So I go out to my car and I call her dad, and I think I really threw him off because on our way up to Fargo, Hannah and I stopped in through Rochester just to see him, and her dad took me outside and just laid some ground rules and just like, are you still interested? I'm like, yep. He's like, okay, these are the rules I have set down. Abide by them, and we'll be good. So I call, and I think it really threw him for a loop because he's like, let me think about this and let me call you back tomorrow. So he had actually called and talked to you, I think, because he's like...
I don't remember.
Well, there had to been some kind of conversation because he had told her some questions that he was going to ask me, and he said, don't tell Ivan I'm going to be asking these questions. So what does Stephanie do? She tells Ivan the questions so I can have the answers ready. That's because she loves me and she wanted me to be prepared. They're just basic questions. What were my future plans and things like that. Mm-hmm. So the next day he called. He gave his consent for us to get married. So we set a wedding date for May 30th, 2014. Now, why did we pick that date? Do you remember? I know why, because I actually picked it. Mm-hmm. So in my family, there are no birthdays or anniversaries in the month of May. So I'm like, we need to get married in May. And she's like, well, it can't be the 24th because that's her parents' 29th, because that's her parents' anniversary. Mm-hmm. And we found out that friends of ours are getting married the 24th or the 23rd, something a week before that. So we set it on the 30th. It was a Friday?
Yep.
Yeah, it was a Friday. So we're like, hey, let's set it. And we weren't even engaged. This is the beginning of September now. School started, and we hadn't even gotten engaged or anything. So then we're in Bible college, and we'll actually do a video about our Bible college experience. We're not going to talk about that too much. October 15th, I did this whole elaborate thing. We're actually going to do a separate video on our engagement story. But I proposed to her at Island Park. It was about 7:30 at night. It was supposed to be 6:30, but she didn't make it till 7:30.
Because he didn't tell me anything, and I had made plans
to get her nails done,
and everybody was upset with me because I didn't come back.
So leading up to, and the proposal part is really romantic, but after that, whoa. Anyway, but we'll tell that story another time. But so we got engaged October 15th. We had already set our wedding date. So we went through our first year of Bible college. She moved out of the dorms in the end of January 2014 into an apartment. She had a better paying job than I did. So we got married May 30th, 2014 in Rochester. And we stayed up in Fargo for 2.5 years. I graduated Bible college with a certificate of biblical studies. And then in 2016, we moved to Rochester, Minnesota, where we're at now. But fun fact, our son, Robert, was born 6 days before our 1-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. Not my ideal thing, but it's okay. We never really talked about having a kid our first year of marriage, which we'll actually do a video about family planning too. But we love Robert. We're glad we have him. Yeah, it was her idea, but that's okay. And now fast forward 2018, we've been married 4.5 years. We have a 3-year-old son, Robert, almost 2-year-old daughter, Lucy, and then in December, 2.5 months, well, no, it's 2 months, really, we've got little Debbie coming. And so we're really excited. We're glad the Lord brought us together. I couldn't do life without her. I'm glad she came out of her shell during winter of 2013. And we could not be happier, really. We've had our ups and downs just like everybody else, but, we've kept God the center of our relationship, of our marriage, and that's what's gotten us through. So I hope you enjoyed our Hateship Courtship video. And the reason why it's called Hateship is because we hated each other for a really long time. We just did not like our families. And by the way, her family, not stuck up. They're really down-to-earth people. It's just sometimes people put up a front as a defense mechanism, and that's fine. Everybody does it. My family's still weird, but she's accepted that weirdness. So that hasn't changed. I love her family. Her family's great. I have a good relationship with the in-laws. We actually live next to my in-laws, and it's the best thing ever. No horrible in-law stories at all. We have babysitters.
Yep.
I didn't grow up around my grandparents on either side, so the fact that my kids get to grow up around at least one side of their grandparents, I love it. And they've helped us out a lot. So yeah, I love my wife's family. I love Stephanie's family. I really do. And they're weird too. They have their odd tendencies, but that's okay.
Yep.
And our families get along, the ones that have, met each other. And I think the only time our families have ever converged in one area was at our wedding. And so everybody is never again. And everybody was reserved and very even-keeled. But she hasn't been around my entire family since we've been married. And again, that was in a controlled environment. So,
and that's the best with the family.
We are a rowdy family, and it's great. So whenever my sister and her husband come back from the mission field for furlough, we are having a Plemons family reunion. And all the stories that I've told will become a reality to her. But anyway.
It's just bad when there's two siblings.
Yeah, because
in the house.
At the dinner table, we will all sit around the dinner table and everybody's talking to each other, at each other, over each other, and yet everybody's carrying on a conversation. Nobody gets confused. Everybody knows what they're talking about.
And my kids are the same way.
And our kids are the same way. Now, her family, everybody takes a turn. Go around the table, nice conversation, but it's fine too. That's fine. Anyway, so we hope you like this video. If you want to see more family table talk videos, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our Plemons Family Values channel, and then hit the little bell right next to the subscribe button, because that'll give you notifications of when we post new videos. So anyway, I hope you like this. This should give you a sign of how our videos are going to be. There's not a serious bone in my body. She balances me out because she's very... So anyway, God bless, and we will see you in the next video.
Bye.